Hey, you guys, so I apologize for being a few minutes late. How are you guys today? I apologize for being a few minutes late. My listing appointment, well, documents I had to prep were running over. So let's get started. I just want to log in right quick and make sure that we are showing up online. And then that way I can tell if I get stuck like this too. Normally you get stuck in some odd way, that everybody would be laughing at you. But anyway, so I'm just making sure I am logged on. I don't see me. Let's see. Let's see. It says I'm live. Oh, there I am. Nope, I'm not there. Okay, there we are. Okay, you guys, so I wanted to hop on here to talk to you about new construction incentives, right? So we talked earlier today about to buy or not to buy, to rent or not to rent, right? So who am I? I'm Garlinda Price. I'm the broker and owner of Fusion Properties, LLC. From the capital to the coast, you're a realtor for life. And so as I was on my way home, I thought about a closing we had last week and a conversation that I had with one of the mortgage lenders that we work with. And so I'm not going to name names because I want you to call us, right? So that'll be our own little secret. You give us a call and work with myself and our brokers, and we will lead you in the right direction. But what I do want to tell you about, and I am going to be generous with this part of the information, is a 2-to-1 or a 2-for-1 buy down, right? So when I saw them using that lingo, a 2-for-1 buy down, I'll share with you that I'll share with you what my buyer got in terms of incentives, and I'll share with you what the current incentive is. So when my buyers went to purchase, they were purchasing new construction from a specific builder here in town, right? But across the country, I've seen articles where it said, like in Michigan, Minnesota, the Northwest, but in here in the South too, builders are offering incentives, and they're offering very generous incentives, right? So my buyer, when they closed on their property last week, was able to get $10,000 in buyer incentives, right? Now they could have used that $10,000 any way they wanted, whether that was for closing costs, whether that $10,000 was for upgrades, or whether that $10,000 was, you couldn't use it off the purchase price, closing costs, upgrades, and I can't think of what else they would have needed to use it for, right? Off the top of my, any inspections they wanted to have done. Some people do new construction home inspections, right? So they could have used that incentive, but then they were also incentivized with a 4.9% interest rate. 4.9% when all other interest rates for VA at that time when we were looking were around 6.5 to 7. So they were able to lock in a 4.9% interest rate. They did have to close within a certain window, which was 25 days. And when we needed to do an extension because the home wasn't ready yet, because it was a pre-sale, so it wasn't all the way ready yet, the lender still gave them an extension, right, to be able to close and still have access to that 4.9% interest rate, still get the $10,000 in builder incentives, and they got money back at closing. Come on now. Win-win. So what is really incredible about that, and I asked the lender, I said, now you did have to use their exclusive lender to get those incentives. Big whoop, right? You just got to change. I know that a lot of times us as brokers, we have our favorites that we want to work with, but ultimately the buyer gets to decide, and it's the buyer's decision. It's the buyer's transaction. It's not about us and what we want. It's about them. And as a realtor, we have to give three choices for a lender, 3 choices for a home inspector. Only thing the buyer doesn't get to select or the seller doesn't get to select is their appraiser, okay? So $10,000 in incentives, 4.9% interest rate. The home was incredible, beautiful floor plan. So I asked the lender, what is the incentive? Like I said, I'm not trying to dog you out. Not dog you out, that's not the word I'm looking for. I'm not trying to like look a gift horse in the mouth. That's probably what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to look a gift horse in the mouth, but how can you all afford to give this much in incentives? That's a lot of money. And they portfolio do they portfolio their own loans? No, they sell them off. They sell them off in the secondary market. I'll tell you what that means in a second. So he said that this particular builder is more interested in volume than he is in the dollar amount that he gets to put in his pocket. That's unheard of to me, right? This builder is more, because this is a corporate builder, right? So this corporate builder is more interested in moving volume, moving multiple amounts and units of homes than he is concerned about the dollar amount that stays in his pocket. So that's the difference when you're working with a local builder because a local builder probably is going to be more invested and interested in what's the bottom line look like, which makes sense. They're taking on all the risk to build this home, hoping that you move the buyers move forward with it. They're taking on a lot of risk, right? So let's say it's a regional or a national builder. A regional builder, they're more concerned with the bottom line, right? Okay, they're more concerned with the bottom line, but a national builder, which this one is, they're like, no, we want to move the volume, we want to move the units. Why? Because they're going to sell it in the secondary marketplace, right? So what happens is, and if you've ever wondered, and I know many of you know this, but for those of you that don't, when you go to purchase a home, you may go through a local lender or a bank lender or your bank or some national lender or a boutique lender to get your loan. Well, most of those lenders are loan originators, right? What that means is they originate the loan. They're the ones that do the application with you. They're the ones that get you pre-approved. They're the ones that walk you through to the closing process of getting your name on the deed. You sign the note, you get the keys to the home, now you own it. But what happens is post-closing, right? So after you close, you've moved into your home, you're all happy, hunky-dory. But on the back side of that, that lender now has to make sure that your file is pristine, right? That's why they ask for all the documentation. That's why they're asking for all this stuff, because they want to make sure that when they go to sell this loan on the secondary market, there are no issues with it. What is the secondary market? That's where all the investors are. Right? So what happens is your loan, your purchase gets lumped into a portfolio with other homeowners, other home buyers. They take this whole bundle of homes and they sell it off to investors. So that's why you end up, when you get a statement in the mail that says, oh, we're your new loan officer, and you end up with a Mr. Cooper or Wells Fargo or Caliber Home Loans, you end up with different lenders. Why? Because your loan has been sold on the secondary market. So now the loan originator, which was your local lender, your bank, your national lender, whoever you got your mortgage through, they get paid for selling this bundle of loans off on the secondary market. The investor goes on, and now the investor is going to make money off of the bundle of loans that they purchased from that lender. Okay? So this particular builder only specifically, from what I was told, cares about moving volume that they can sell on the secondary market. Why? Because they're going to make their money off of everything else, that like the post-closing. They're going to make money on the interest. They're going to make money on fees. They're going to make money on those things, and that's where they're looking to make their money. So that's how they can offer such really great incentives. So the next incentive, that was the incentive that my buyer took advantage of. So when I called them back, the mortgage lender that we work with, I said, do you have any other incentives for investment properties? You have any incentives for second home market? What other buyer incentives do you have for residential? He said, we have something called a 2-for-1 or a 2-to-1 buy down. I said, okay, well, what is that? And even though I've seen them before, because we've been in a market where we haven't needed creative financing, we haven't needed funny, I don't want to say funny money. We haven't needed alternative lending sources or wraparound mortgages or that's the only one I can think of. Just something creative to incentivize the buyer. We haven't needed that because we had such a normal market. Is the water cooked all the way out that pan yet? No. So we haven't needed that because of where we were as an economy. But now the interest rates are at 8%, right? These builders are like, okay, we're going to need to do something to massage the market. We're going to need to do something to, let me fix this light, this blind right quick. What you doing? Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. That light was wearing my nerves. Oh, it's still there. Oh, because it's coming from up there. So they're like, we need to do something to massage the market, to create movement, to incentivize purchasing, right? So in order to incentivize purchasing, what did they do? They said, let's create this 2-to-1 or 2-for-1 or 2-to-1 buy down. So what is that? So that is where the builder will actually pay. Let me see, how can I explain it correctly? The builder will pay 2 points, right, for the first 2 years of your loan. So let's give an example. So let's say that you went to get pre-approved, and during the pre-approval process, you were going to have a 6.5% interest rate, right? So instead of having a 6.5% interest rate with a 2-to-1 buy down, the builder is paying down 2 points for you for the first 2 years of your loan. So your first year interest rate is 4.5%. Your second year interest rate is 5.5%. The third year is when your interest rate adjusts to that 6.5%. So then I was like, okay, well, I have a question, which I know everyone else is probably having the same question too. If you'll see this in or you're watching it with me now, is can you refinance? You can refinance at any time. Now, it wouldn't make sense for you to refinance at 4.5%. I mean, if you have a 4.5% rate, if the rates next year is 6%, right, or 5%, keep your 4.5%. You have it for a year. But let's say the second year, your rate goes up to 5.5%, right? And the rates are 4.5% or 5%, then it might make sense to refinance. It only makes sense to refinance depending on how long you're going to stay in the home, and an expert lender can walk you through this. I'm not a lender and I don't do math, so I don't want to jam you up, but I will say that it needs to make sense economically to refinance, right? Because there are some costs associated with it. So the first year, they're doing a 2-to-1 buy down. They're buying down 2 points for the first 2 years of your loan, so you can come in at a lower interest rate, regardless of the fact that the interest rates in the market are 8%, right? So let's say it's 8%, right? So they're going to buy you down to 6%. So the first year your loan is 6%. The second year your loan is 7%. The third year it adjusts to the 8% mark, but anywhere along the line you can refinance and get a lower interest rate if and when the market adjusts. So then my next question was, well, what about the $10,000? I see that I'm frozen. Okay, what about the $10,000 in incentives that my buyer had just gotten? What if that builder is offering additional incentives? Can they layer those incentives on top of that 2-to-1 buy down? He said yes. Oh my gosh, gangster, right? So that's why I keep saying that new construction is like the hot ticket. You really need to be looking at new construction and renovation loans. We have lenders that specialize in both. And why do I say renovation loans? Is because let's say the new construction prices are pretty high, right? The base price for my client's house was $297 and they ended up financing $334, right? So new construction is not the least expensive ticket, but if you have good credit, you have good enough credit and you can get a pre-approval for that amount, it's worth it to go for it, right? But let's say you're like, well, girl, Linda, I have good credit, but I don't have that much where I can go for that high of an amount. Consider a construction loan, right? So we talked about renovation loans. I'm not going to talk about that now, but because I threw it out there, I just want to share with you that if you do a renovation loan, you can do cosmetic things. So you can create that look that you want in your home that is your dream vision cosmetically, as long as you can get approved for the amount of the repairs plus the cost of the home, right? So what I mean by that is, let's say you get approved for $210,000 and that's your max approval, but the repairs that you need on the home are $20,000, right? So that's technically $230,000 after repair value. So if you don't qualify for the after repair value of the home, which is $230,000, it may not work for you to do a renovation loan. Okay, it may be something that you'll have to do over time once you're in the home and you get in there and you start making it your own. But the point is, get in there, right? Get in there right now while you can and do that. So I just wanted to share with you some of the new construction incentives that are out there. There's some really great ones out there. A 2-to-1 buy down may be something that you want to consider, right? And also one thing to consider, let's say for existing residential, because a lot of the sellers do have equity in their home, right? It may be worth it for you to ask for some closing costs, right? We talked about that earlier today, because if you don't ask, you don't receive it. Right? Now's the time where you need to work with a professional realtor and a professional lending team that are savvy. They're savvy. They know how to negotiate. They're solutions oriented. They're problem oriented. And they're like, how can I get my client into this home? It may not work. It may work. But what if it does? I've seen God do some crazy things in the real estate market for people to get in homes. I remember closing on a property where literally the guy had $100 on the day. He had a negative $100 the day before closing. He had a $100 the day of closing, because you have to have reserves in your account. And that was all he had to close. That was probably 13 years ago. So it was when I first got licensed. So I've seen God do the miraculous, and I've seen God do some amazing things. Another client of mine that purchased a home last summer or earlier this year. I want to say it was earlier this year. The home was an estate. So the lady that owned the home was not the original owner. She inherited the home, right? So when she inherited the home, that meant that she didn't necessarily have any skin in the game, because what was her vested interest? She hadn't paid into it. She owned it through heir, right? Through an inheritance. So even though she had paid the taxes on it and she had done the upkeep of the property, she lived in another town, right? She was still here in North Carolina, but she lived in another town. So when my clients went to write the offer, they said, well, Garlinda, we want to get a good deal. And I was like, well, I have not seen a lot of negotiating in this market, but listen, my job is to follow your legal request, to do what you tell me to do legally. My responsibility as an agent is loads: loyalty, obedience, accountability, and skill and diligence in negotiating a contract. So as long as whatever you're asking me to do isn't illegal, I'm required to do that, right? That's my responsibility, because I work for you as the buyer or I work for you as the seller. So they wanted a deal. So they presented to me the offer that they wanted to create, to make. They were fellow believers. And I said, well, hey, I believe God with you. Let's see what happens. The lady took the offer. And it was a significant discount. Like, there was 2 numbers in front of the comma discount. So now, had I seen God do that all the time in this market? Not since COVID, but it happened, right? So nothing's impossible with God. So I would just share with you that if you are in the market and you have been sitting out, I shared a video earlier today. I'd love for you to go back and watch it. It's called To Buy or to Rent or to Buy. To rent or not to buy. To rent or to buy. One of those, right? So is now a good time to rent? Is now a good time to buy? Of course, you have to make the decision for yourself, but I weigh the pros and the cons in that scenario. Okay. And so right now we're starting to catch up with our supply. I will tell you that pre-COVID, we were already behind 5 years in new construction. Post-COVID, we are playing catch up, but we're not 5 years caught up, right? So what's going to end up happening is, if you wait, you're going to get caught up in that rush when interest rates go back down, and interest rates make sense again for some people in their mind. Okay, well, I'll wait until interest rates make sense. But then you're going to be back in the feeding frenzy. I can't predict this. I can just tell that I know the market really well, and I've talked to many of my comrades and fellow brokers, lawyers that do our real estate closings, and we genuinely believe that there's going to be a feeding frenzy. Like when interest rates drop, it's going to be game on. And you don't want to get caught up in that. You don't want to be in a line 30 people deep, 50 deep trying to buy a home, right? When you could purchase your home right now, go ahead and get under contract. You can refinance within 6 months, right? So you can already be in your home. You just got to tighten up your bootstraps and have some constraints for 6 months to a year, and then move forward with refinance. And so don't let people talk you into waiting and saying, oh, now's not the time to buy. People just trying to make commissions. I'm in this business for service. Getting paid is a byproduct of service. Like, if we don't serve, we don't deserve to get paid. So we're going to get paid regardless, because we plan to serve. So I just want to share with you that while now is a really great time to consider new construction, the incentives that are out there, the 2-to-1 buy down. If you just joined me, welcome. Go back and listen to it from the beginning. And then also, if you have time, listen to the video I did earlier today that talks about, should you keep renting or should you buy a home, right? So that's what I wanted to share with you all today. I'm Garlinda Price. I'm the broker and owner of Fusion Properties, LLC, from the capital to the coast. You're a realtor for life. I know I'm not as animated today. I don't feel great at all, right? But I got to keep pressing my way. And so if you are thinking about purchasing a home, I want you to listen from the beginning where I talk about the 2-to-1 buy down. And there's a builder in our market that has this really great incentive. I'm going to just give you a snippet because I already shared it in the beginning. But where, let's say the interest rates today are at 8%. That builder will literally pay 2 points. What does that mean, preacher? That means that instead of an 8% rate, they're going to buy down your rate to 6%. So your first year of home ownership is 6%. Your second year is 7%. Your third year is when it goes to 8%. But you can refinance anywhere during that time. And let's say that there's some incentives being offered, right? That builder has some incentives that he can give you, like $10,000 is what my last client got. You can layer the builder incentives on top of the 2-to-1 buy down that the builder is doing. So if you want to find out who we're working with and what we're doing, and you want to be our client, we'll give you our little secret, right? But that's our unique selling proposition. We ain't going to give all the juicy details unless you come work with us, okay? And just to share with you the markets that we work in, You heard me say from the capital to the coast, you're a realtor for life. So we sell all of the Fayetteville markets. So Fayetteville, Hope Mills, Rayford, Moore County, Aberdeen, Pinehurst, Hope, Harnett, Lee County, Sampson, Robeson, all the way down to Maxton. I know, right? Fairmont. That's how far we go down 95, which is pretty close to Buc-ee's. Just kidding, right? And then we go all the way over to Wilson, Warsaw, Goldsboro, Edgecombe County, Greenville, North Carolina, Rocky Mount, Tarboro, all the way over to Zebulon, Wendell, the whole Raleigh-Durham market, Chapel Hill, you name it, we go there. All the way down to the coast of Wilmington, my very favorite market, right? Brunswick County, New Hanover County, Onslow County. So we work on a very large market. We have brokers that can serve you in the majority of the markets that you're in. And if we're not in your market, we'll get in your market. And if we can't get in your market because let's say you're too far outside of our footprint, we can refer business over there. We have agent partners, all across the country, even overseas. So let's say you're ready to purchase your property in Dominican Republic, Tulum, Mexico, Germany, Africa, Korea. You tell us, where do you want to be? We're going to connect you with an incredible broker, London, right? You name it, because we're international brokers. And so we can help you with that process. So again, I'm Garlinda Price. I look forward to talking to you all again as the Lord leads, which hopefully is tomorrow, right? But we're here to just be the expert of choice for you to help you make wise decisions as it relates to real estate. But get off the sidelines. You don't want to be a part of that feeding frenzy when the interest rates do drop and you're going to be kicking yourself like, man, I should have listened to Garlinda and her team over at Fusion Properties, okay? So love you guys. God bless you. I'll talk to you soon. Go back and listen to the beginning if you join me later, okay? So I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye, you guys.